Hi class, it's Professor Anderson, and this is our live Zoom session for the quarter. It's our only one that we'll have, and it's optional. They're not mandatory. So if you have to leave early, that's fine. I'm going to post it so that everyone can watch it. And I do want to add that you can always request to have a Zoom conference with me at any point in the quarter, or email me with any questions that you have. I will also have time for questions today if anybody has any. But I just want to use this time to highlight some important information about the course that's important to know from the start. And the first thing that I want to stress is just keep open communication with me this quarter. Basically, if something comes up or if you're confused about an assignment or struggling with something, it's best to email me as early as possible. So that's, before the assignment's due or as early as you can, just kind of email me if something's going on. If it's after an assignment's due, it's not as easy to work around. So just be sure to email me with anything, big or small, and keep just that open communication throughout the whole semester. Another thing that I want to say is a lot of AI writing is popping up. Basically, it's getting more accessible and more students are trying to use it. And the program that we use to turn in our papers, Turnitin, checks for that. So please do not use artificial intelligence to write your papers. It will get flagged and Turnitin. And then also AI papers are generally really easy to spot anyway because they don't have any kind of originality. They lack any kind of a distinct writing style. So it's pretty obvious when a student uses that. And honestly, you'll get a better grade even if you have a few grammar mistakes, if you have a distinctive style, and if you're bringing up new ideas, than if you use AI and don't have any grammar mistakes and have a paper that's basically just regurgitating whatever it says about the text on the internet. So please don't use AI. I want to see y'all's own ideas. And so just kind of don't use that, please. Thanks. Okay, the other thing I want to stress is to check news and announcements. It's at the top of the course page. It's a link. It'll say news and announcements. And that is where all of the important information for the course is located, besides the syllabus, of course. I send out a weekly announcement every Monday that'll go over the assignments that week and when they're due, and any other important information for that week. Sometimes I send out deadline reminders and other important things. So I recommend checking it once a day to make sure that you don't miss anything. Okay. And then the drop add quarter, it's always the first 4 days of a quarter. So that means that the last day to drop or add a class will be this Thursday, June 6th. And if you do want to drop a course, you will contact your graduation coach to do that. Professors can't drop students, so don't email me. I won't be able to do it for you. And withdrawals are what occurs after the drop add period until 1 week prior to the end of term. So for this quarter, the withdrawal deadline would be July 22nd because the term ends 1 week after that. And there are two types of withdrawals. The IU withdrawals occur if a student does not participate in a graded course activity for 12 or more days. Then I, as the professor, will withdraw you from the class and you'll receive a grade of IU. And that is basically like an F on your transcript. And the graded activities that count towards participation will be your discussion forums, the skill building activity posts, as well as any essays, exams, or quiz submissions. So all participation in graded activities will count towards that attendance. Logging into the course, looking at a page, practice quizzes, or anything else that is not graded will not constitute attendance. So make sure you are doing some kind of graded activity because after 12 plus days, you'll have to be withdrawn from the course. The other type of withdrawal is just a W, and that occurs when a student sends an email to their professor, so that'd be me, requesting to be withdrawn from the class for a grade of W. The request is not valid if a student asks for a withdrawal past the 12 days, because then it would have to be the non-attendance withdrawal, which is the IU. And I want to talk a little bit about the impact and consequences of withdrawals. If you have to leave a course before it's over, a drop at the beginning of the term is preferable to a withdrawal. And that's because a withdrawal counts against your attempted hours. So if you're receiving financial aid, it can impact that. And a drop does not affect your attempted hours if you're receiving financial aid. And if you ever have to withdraw from a course, a W is preferable to an IU because the W won't affect your GPA, but the non-attendance IU will affect your GPA. But I do want to mention that a W can adversely affect your financial aid, and it will still count as an attempted course hour. So you always want to contact your graduation coach before making the decision to withdraw from a class. And even if a course attempt ends in withdrawal, it's better to stay in the course as long as you reasonably can versus withdrawing early in the quarter. And that is because the longer you stay in a class, the more familiar you're going to become with the material, and the more you'll kind of get to know the course a little bit better so that when you reattempt it later down the line, it's better for you in the long run. So if you do have to withdraw from a class, I recommend staying in it as long as you possibly can. And of course, the best option overall is to try to complete the course with a passing grade. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the discussion forum guidelines and the week 1 deadlines, because we have those going on this week. The forum guidelines and weekly deadlines are explained in the following places. They're in the discussion forum guidelines section of the course syllabus. They're also in the frequently asked questions link on the main course page, and the discussion forum grading rubric inside the grading rubrics folder on the main course page. Okay, and the class online resources we have free tutoring at GMC. It's available 24/7. It's called Smart Thinking, and the link is on the main course page towards the top. And you can have tutors look at your papers and other assignments. It's a really great resource, so I definitely recommend checking it out. There is an MLA style how-to guide linked in the class. We're going to be writing everything in MLA format here. Some of you might be familiar with it, some of you might struggle with it, but there's a great how-to guide that you can look at. And that is also linked on the main course page. We have the student resources link. I recommend everyone check that out. There's a lot of helpful information there too. We also have an Ask a Librarian feature through the GMC library. And that link I think is on the main page. I'll double check, and if not, I can send that out to everyone. And we have a great online librarian here. His name is Ryan Taylor, and you guys can email him with any library questions, and his email is rtaylor@gmc.edu. And back to discussion forums, I want to talk a little bit about peer responses. And basically, discussion forums are like only as interesting as you make them. I know a lot of students kind of dread discussion forums and think they're kind of boring, but honestly, you can really make them interesting, and they don't have to be boring. And a lot of that will depend on peer responses. Basically, what you don't want to do is you don't want to just give them encouragement like, oh, good job, like you bring up lots of great points. That kind of stuff does not count for credit. It's okay to say it, but that won't count towards the peer response grade. And you want to avoid repeating what the original post said, and you want to bring up new information. Basically, your goal is to keep the conversation going. So if you just repeat everything that the original post said, that's not going to keep the conversation going. But if you bring up new points or ask questions, that can kind of keep it going. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, I want to bring up just a couple things as we start writing assignments, just to kind of refresh everyone's memory about these things. And I do usually send out a checklist when we have essays that have most of this on it, so you don't have to like write this down or anything. I just want to go over it. In academic writing, you're not going to use contractions. So don't will become do not, can't will become cannot. And that just makes it a little bit more formal. You want to avoid first and second person pronouns. And that's kind of just another formal, more professional thing. And along those lines, you don't want to put I think or I believe in your papers, because if you're writing it, then I know that's what you're thinking. I know that's what you're believing. So just go ahead and take those out of the sentence, and the sentence usually still makes sense. Don't reference the essay directly in your writing. So you don't want to say things like, in this essay, I will show, or for this essay, I choose to write about, in this post, I will. You don't want to reference the essay itself, because your reader will know those things just by reading your essay. You want to use statements instead of questions. And I would say very rarely is it okay to include a question in an essay, because statements are just so much stronger than the question. Basically, I'm looking for answers to questions, so you don't want to put hypothetical questions in your papers. And if you're reading a rough draft and you notice that you are asking questions, the easiest way to change that is just to make a statement that answers the question. Let's see. Okay, works cited entries and in-text citations. In-text citations will be a big thing in this class because we're writing everything in MLA. For MLA, generally, in-text citations have the author's last name and page number in parentheses. And if there is no page number, you can just leave it out. You don't have to include the paragraph number or anything for this class. You'll just put the author's last name in parentheses. And if you're using multiple sources in the works cited page, they should be in alphabetical order. The required reading for this class, I think it's all in PDFs this quarter. So you'll format your works cited entry as a PDF file, and that falls under the digital file format. And there's a website that has a really good example of this, so I'll go ahead and email that out sometime this week. And when you're writing, you want to write in present tense. So instead of saying Hemingway wrote this in his story, you'll want to say Hemingway writes in his story, and so on. Let's see, quotation marks versus italics. Short stories, the titles of short stories are always in quotation marks, and TV shows, movies, and novels are always in italics. Let's see. Also, I mean, plagiarism, obviously you guys know not to plagiarize, but I want to stress that even unintentional plagiarism can get you into trouble. So that would be like leaving out an in-text citation or something like that. So just try to be really intentional with your in-text citations and just making sure that everything is given credit accordingly. And along those lines, and Turnitin with plagiarism, I have a lot of students ask what's an okay similarity rating? And I don't really give out a specific number because even if there's only a 5% similarity rating, something could be plagiarized. And even if something's a 30% similarity rating, sometimes that is all given credit properly and there's no plagiarism. So it's not really that much about the number. It's about whether or not you're using citations and punctuation correctly to show where the information comes from. Excuse me. So if you're quoting and citing properly, it's generally accepted that around 20% of the paper can be quotes. So basically with your similarity ratings, you want to make sure that you're citing things and that it's around 20% of things that you've quoted from other materials. Another important thing to keep in mind is that if an assignment doesn't call for outside sources, please do not use them. This goes for discussion forums too. And so any assignment, make sure you look and see if there need to be secondary sources or outside sources, because for some of the things, you'll just be using the primary sources for the assignment. And the last thing I want to talk about is summary versus analysis. You want your writing to be basically all analysis. Even if you're writing about a story, you won't give a summary about the story at the beginning of the paper. And that's just because you can assume that the reader of your paper has already read the story too, so you don't have to explain every single thing that happens. So when you're writing, you want to focus on that analysis and keep summary to a minimum. All right, let me make sure that I talked about everything I wanted to. Does anybody have any questions? We have a couple minutes. Okay, well, I think that's probably all that I wanted to highlight in the Zoom session. If I think of anything else, I'll just email it out through the message system. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about that you come up with later, or if you're watching this as the recording, feel free to email me. And yeah, like I said before, just keep a lot of communication, keep me updated on how things are going. Nothing that you email is too small, so just let me know how I can help. All right, thanks, bye guys.